Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach. I hope everyone has had another wonderful Wednesday, and I am excited to be with you again. I cannot believe that it has almost been an entire month since Conversations with Coach started, and I am so thankful and grateful for all of you who have joined me and continue to follow me and find value in what I do. This evening, we are going to be talking about coaching versus therapy. And oftentimes, those two get mixed up. However, tonight, my guest is going to help us learn the difference between the two. As you all know, I am a coach, and I'm super excited to have join me this evening someone who is a licensed therapist and also a certified coach. So please help me welcome my guest this evening, Coach Robin May.
Hi.
Hello, Robin. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I am so excited to have you. And as I was sharing with my guest, that sometimes it does get crossed up when people think about the two, but we both know that they are not the same. And I'm excited to have you on to talk about the difference between them and actually the benefits of being of both of them. And
Absolutely.
so let's not waste any more time. Let's get ready to dive right into this and talk about the the how far. Let's start with therapy. Let's start about how far that has come. Like it used to be when you would hear someone mention a counselor or therapy or anything, people would kind of bristle up and they would kind of look at them
Yes.
like, are you cray cray or something like that?
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
now it's kind of turning a little bit. It's kind of turning where it's almost like, oh, so you don't have a counselor?
Exactly. Exactly. And I hope that trend, I don't even want to say that. When I say trend, I hope the trend of positivity continues because we want to be careful not to make therapy a trend because trends come and go. And the truth is, therapy is critical. I personally believe that all of us need a therapist and a coach at some point on our journey. And
Yes.
so, yes, I believe that as we continue to normalize, we continue to talk about the importance of counseling, that is going to be the response. Oh, wait a minute, you don't have a therapist? Not, you got a therapist? We want people to feel that going to therapy is not about you being crazy. Like you said, cray cray. Back in the day, they'll be like, do you get a check? We don't want it to
Yes.
be about that. We want it to be that people understand the power of therapy. I actually, Christina, saw a meme that's floating around, and it says something along the lines of the reason why people think they can just talk to their significant other is because they don't understand that therapy is not just a conversation, right?
Mhm,
It's not just about having a conversation.
mhm.
Therapy really is about deep exploration. Therapy really is about healing brokenness. Therapy really is about clearing up patterns of dysfunction that are no longer serving you. So therapy with a trained clinician is not just a casual conversation.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I want it to be like we go see our dentist twice a year, like we go
Yes.
see our primary care physician when there's something or just for routine maintenance
Yeah.
or if there's something wrong. That should be a part of our wellness team. Like I have a wellness team. And
Yes.
on my wellness team, I have a therapist because let me
Yes.
tell you, I don't want to keep things bottled up. It is not
Mhm.
healthy for us to do that. And there are people such as yourself that are
Yeah.
trained for that to help us to work through it. With everything going on in this crazy world, we
Yes.
need someone who is a professional, who is trained to be able to help us to sort through it. We should not be here trying to figure these things out for ourselves. It should
Absolutely.
be doing it the correct way in terms of having someone to help us to navigate through the things that we went through and the things that we are going through.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, Christina, though, because that one line, we should not do it by ourselves. That is a mindset that many don't have. Actually, we've been taught the opposite, especially the idea of independence or being strong. The idea is that you should be able to do it by yourself. So that one mindset is a mindset shift. We don't have to live what I call an isolation island. So I love the idea of a wellness team. I call it an advisory board. You need people on your team who can help you navigate. Christina, so many people are doing what I call white knuckling through life. They're just holding on for dear life. And this is what I hear often. Well, my mama didn't need a therapist. My daddy didn't need a therapist. My grandmother. And what I say is they probably did.
They
They
probably
probably did.
did.
And quite frankly, your mama and your grandmama and your sister too, they all sitting on my couch. They're just not telling you.
They're
And
not telling
so
you.
we definitely do need the support.
Well, you brought up something very interesting when you mentioned that all of these other family members are probably seeing a therapist, but they're not telling. What is it that you think is the reason why it's kept so hush hush, especially in
Mhm.
certain communities?
Well, I think it's still in line with the stigma. Now, so let's say this, even, well, this is going to get sticky and tricky, but I'm going to go here.
Okay.
Even the profession of counseling comes from a standpoint of a diagnosis, us giving you a diagnosis, naming an illness, right? And so, because of that, people don't want to be associated with having an illness.
Got
So
you.
I don't want to be associated with there being something wrong. And so the tabooness of therapy still continues to keep it as a secret. But let me just help everybody who's watching this.
Help us
All of us,
tonight.
all of us.
Okay.
Oprah is absolutely my best friend. She just doesn't know it.
Okay.
So Oprah, Michelle Obama, Barack, or whoever your Beyonce, whoever your person is, let me just help you. All of us are on the spectrum of something. If I talk to somebody long enough, just give me a good 15 minutes, I can tell them what spectrum they are on. We're on the spectrum of something. And I say that just to, again, lessen the stigma. All of us are a couple of symptoms away from a diagnosis. So if you go and see someone, it doesn't have to mean that you are broken or you're messed up. It really is helping you sort through the waters that you've been traveling, because you can't see it the way somebody from the outside looking in can see it. And that's what
Absolutely.
therapy does. It gives you, the therapist is able to listen unbiased through a trained ear to help you see what you can't see.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you put it like that, because a lot of the time, especially with social media, people see the lives that we want them to see.
Absolutely.
They don't see behind closed doors, or they don't see when the camera shut off and the makeup comes off. They don't see
Exactly.
that. And I'm so
Exactly.
glad that you mentioned that we all have our own personal and private struggles. And that
Yes.
we all fall somewhere in there where we need the listening ear of a trained therapist. And I'm so
Absolutely.
glad that you mentioned that. Before we transition on to the next topic, I do want to ask you, since the pandemic, have you noticed in terms of male or females the increase in those seeking out more therapeutic help?
I don't say that. Well, let me go back. I was about to say no. I was about to say I haven't seen necessarily male or female increase. I have just seen an increase um, since the pandemic. The pandemic has risen to the level of a trauma for all of us, right?
Mm.
And Christina, not only the pandemic, 2020 brought in with it came floating into our lives. And I'm a bit dramatic. People who see me in therapy will know this. So I'm gonna use this as a prop.
Okay.
This is Essence. Hey, Essence. But this is 2020, and 2020 came into our lives, and it
Mhm.
carried the pandemic. So it
Okay.
carried the pandemic, but
Okay.
it also carried, this is an earpiece, a lot
Uh-huh.
of civil unrest,
Yes, it
right?
did. Yes,
And
it did.
so this one year carried two traumas for us that have risen to a level of a trauma. If
Okay.
you study post traumatic stress disorder, what's so powerful about that is that you can have you can be impacted by PTSD even when the trauma didn't happen directly to you, just by watching and observing a trauma.
Let me
You
tell
can
you.
experience the symptoms of PTSD. So, yes, the pandemic did increase people seeking out support.
And that is so true, because I will tell you my own personal testimony, talking about the pandemic, the isolation and the mask wearing and all of that. Add on top of that the civil unrest that came with that, and then
Yes.
personally being infected with COVID.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
you want to talk about the post-traumatic stress that comes
Yes,
with all of that, and that I know as a true testimony, it is absolutely true. So don't tell me.
absolutely.
I embrace my therapist. Like, I'm
Yes,
running and can't wait to each therapy session, just to
yes,
make sure that I am of sound mind, because
absolutely.
sound mind does not come with a price tag. Let me just tell you, you can't buy peace.
Exactly.
You cannot buy peace.
Maybe not at all. And so I think when we understand that, and all you're getting, get understanding. When we understand that and we understand what we have lived through, I like to describe it as we've all been carrying around this weighted blanket now for almost 2 years, just the
Mm,
blanket on top of us, and wondering why we are snapping much easier, wondering why our patience is less, wondering why we're easily agitated. Well,
right.
you've been living and walking and traveling through a pandemic now for 2 years, and it is having an impact and taking a toll.
Absolutely. Now, we both are coaches. We both got our training and certification from the same place. We're
Yes.
both graduates of the CAP Institute there in Atlanta.
Yep.
And I know what it is for me to carry that certification as a coach. You have too. You're a licensed therapist
Yes.
and you're also a coach. So let's talk about coaching or counseling. And
Yeah.
does it have to be an or in the middle of it?
Well, I think we only put an or to help um, put a line between the two or understand the difference of the two. Christina, so coaches and counselors, I've used this analogy before. I pledged a sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So what I like to describe coaching and counseling is almost like the AKAs and the deltas for those who understand the Penn Hill culture. It's like we are sisters. We're all sisters, but there's this little thing that can kind of happen between the two. And that's what I find in both circles. Counselors are looking at coaches like, are you trying to do my job? And coaches are looking at counselors like, ain't nobody, so it's this back and forth. But both of them really, really are necessary. And I like to call them cousins, but not the same thing. Some of the skill set is similar, but it is not the same thing. And so the way I try to help people understand it, the simplest way that people explain it is they say counseling deals with your past and coaching deals with the future. Well, that's an overly simplistic definition of it, because counselors absolutely help you plan for the future, and coaches absolutely do look at your story and your journey to understand you better. But I think the better way to understand it is that counseling, again, is dealing with um, life trauma, life dysfunction, patterns of dysfunction. Therapy is dealing with um, anxiety and depression that is interfering with your daily functioning, right?
Right.
It's when it's interfering with your ability to produce, to get up, to function. Therapy is dealing with not simply mindset, but is dealing with core beliefs and experiences that have happened along the way that
Mhm.
continue to fuel you today, right?
Right.
Now, coaches are going to be treading on thin ice when they
Mhm.
start trying to help you deal with trauma, right?
Right.
Because more than likely they have not been trained to deal with that.
Right.
Coaching is often very production focused,
Okay.
getting it done, making it happen. Coaching is dealing with definitely mindset and shifting mindsets for this goal so that we can achieve this goal. Their coaching is very goal oriented. And so when you're dealing with a coach, you're dealing with somebody who is taking what you're saying you're trying to achieve and supporting you in making that happen. Now, we may have to look back at, you know what, this pattern is showing up. What is that about? But we're not going to delve into that a whole lot. We're not going to be talking about, okay, when you were 5 years old, your mom said that. Coach, that's
Right.
getting into a dangerous zone, right? And so
Right.
understanding that coaching is focused on helping you move from where you are to where you want to be. Counseling is helping you understand how the heck did you get here in the first place.
Okay. That's it right there. How did you get here in the first place? And just knowing the difference. Now, this is going to kind of go into the next one a little bit. I don't want to get there too quick though. But as you're wearing the hat of both, how do you keep them separate?
Yeah, it is. It's not for the faint at heart. So it is not always easy. Even Christina, if I even broke down how logistically with my business, I have to keep them very separate. Like
Yes.
everything, people my coaching clients schedule over here, my counseling clients schedule over here. My website has a disclaimer on it. If my coaching website has a disclaimer, hey, listen, if you're looking for counseling. And so one of the first things is I don't wear both hats with I was about to say something. Let me clarify that. I don't wear both hats. So if somebody hires me as their coach, I will not start to do counseling with them, even if I start to recognize that there is a therapeutic or clinical issue arising. I will ask them to seek out counseling. I will even go so far as to pause our coaching relationship until they find a therapist, and then that therapist then releases them to coaching, right?
Yes.
Now, what caused me to pause, because I was about to say when I'm counseling someone, I'm not becoming their coach, but counseling does include coaching skills,
It
right?
does.
But I will not become both their business coach and their counselor, right?
Understood.
If I
Mhm.
start to recognize, okay, well, this might be you finding a coach to help you with this. So that's the first thing. The
Mhm.
second thing is I ask a lot of probing questions to figure out what the need is. What are you seeking support for? Because here's the deal, it's my responsibility. Well, I take on the responsibility to understand the difference, because many people who are seeking the support, they don't. They don't understand
Mm.
the difference necessarily. All they know
Mhm.
is either their language is, I'm just looking for some help, or
Yes.
somebody told me I needed a counselor, or somebody told me I needed a coach. And so
Yes.
I help to educate them on what that difference is. And often, again, how I'm really able to tell the difference is how well you are functioning in your everyday life, and
Right.
not just on the surface. Because,
Mm.
baby, we can function well on the surface.
Okay, come on now.
Some Fortune 500 CEOs look like they functioning well on the surface,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So I'm going to be probing and asking you what is your spouse saying about how you're showing up? What are
Okay.
the common statements people are saying about how you're showing up, so that I can understand which lane we need to be in?
Yes, that's so good. That is so good. Now you have segue into the third topic that I want to talk about, your journey.
Yes.
And so how long have you been a therapist? How
Mhm.
long have you been a coach? And what made you decide to become
Mhm.
a coach?
Yeah. So I have been serving as a therapist now for almost 15 years, which is unbelievable to me.
Wow.
Almost 15 years, a little bit longer than that. Um, I think it might have been more like 17. So I was working in full-time ministry, Christina, at
Mhm.
my local church actually, and started to try to figure out what my purpose was. I actually made finding my purpose my part-time job, girl. I was reading everything I could, taking all the assessments I could, because I just didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, right?
Right.
And so at this point, I'm a grown woman though, married, and I just started trying to figure out my purpose, and that's how I kind of landed with counseling, because I began to see I had a particular skill to create safe spaces for people. People would come into my space and want to share their journey and their story. I have a particular skill of being able to take away the judgment and infuse curiosity so that you can understand yourself in a way that is liberating. And so I
Right.
started to recognize that skill. So I pursued counseling. But then as I began to work in the field, I began to recognize there were some people who I was supporting clinically who I realized that wasn't the best fit. There was
Mm.
more goal-oriented things that we needed to be focused on. They needed more directed support. They needed more tough love. How I show up as a therapist is a little bit different than how I show up as a coach, right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so I began to seek out that lane. And so I would say I've probably been in the field of coaching now probably about 12 years, 10 to
Oh,
12
awesome.
years. Um,
Wow.
let me make sure. Around, yeah, about 10 to 12 years. I can't calculate exactly. I tell it by my children. That's
Yes.
all. But I'm like, okay, my middle baby is 12. So I think it's been about 10 to 12 years. And so what made me say I wanted to really lean into coaching is also because I have what I call, Christina, this 2-lane highway where
Okay.
I empower women and I equip couples. And that's what I did for a very long time, this 2-lane highway, helping women tap into their purpose and helping couples experience the marriage that they longed for. I have since
Oh,
evolved in that, where I continue to create safe spaces for driven individuals, people who are goal oriented, people who check boxes, people who get it done, but they haven't learned to slow their lives down long enough to pay attention to the life they're creating. And so that's
awesome.
what I do in my coaching world.
That is so awesome. I had no idea you have been coaching that long.
Yes.
They're almost equal in terms of the amount
Yeah.
of time that you've been doing it. Now, you also mentioned that you were, in terms of ministry, your ministry work. How does your ministry work go into these two, since you did find what your purpose is? How
Yeah.
does all of that, because we are who we are. And
Yes,
as much as
girl.
sometimes we
Yes.
try to keep them separate, it's difficult, especially when
You're preaching, girl.
it's so close to your ministry. It really is different. So talk a little bit about your ministry.
So it's so interesting you say that because, as coaches, we are continuing to evolve and we're continuing to grow and gain the courage to fully walk out who we are. And for a long time, girl, I tried to keep who I am as a woman of faith over here.
Mm,
And girl, child, no.
no.
That's just not, because my faith fuels so much of who I am. Now, I will
Yes.
say this. Let me say this very clearly. I even say this on my website that my work in ministry, or who I am, not just in ministry, who I am as a woman, part of my expertise is the ability to use my clinical expertise and my spiritual sensitivity to help people of faith experience the life they want to live. But I'm also skilled enough to not project my faith onto clients. And
Right.
so I create the space that if you want to tap into this gift over here where I can help you navigate that, I'm your girl. But if that is not your area, then what we're going to do is identify, because what we will find out is what is your belief system. So we'll have to dig in. I won't be able to help you with it. You're going to have to get real clear on what your belief system is, what fuels you. And as
Mhm.
you do that, we'll use that. It's very important, and you know this as a coach, that we don't project our worldview onto our clients, but it
Right.
is definitely infused in who I am. And so my husband and I do pastor a church here in our local area. And I try my best to not take on clients that are in my ministry. I try to refer them the best I can. But the truth is, Christina, I have discovered that all of this is my gift. All of it together is my gift. And when people can tap into their gift, their life will be changed.
Absolutely. It's what I try to tell people or encourage people is start actually there. The things that you are gifted with, I mean, it says your gifts will make room for you.
Yes.
Don't make your life more difficult than it already is. Just stop running from it. The sooner
Yeah.
you stop and turn around and face it, the easier it's going to be. And
Yeah.
I know that personally as well, because it's who you are. It's a part of your fabric and your being, and it's what you were
Yes.
created to do and what you were meant to do. And the
Yes.
sooner you can embrace that, the better. And like you just said, it everything that you are doing, from the therapy to the coaching to the ministry, all of it is so tightly woven together
Mhm.
that it is difficult. And I don't know that we necessarily do need to have them so separate, but when we recognize and respect what other
Yes.
people's beliefs and everything is, it all works out together.
Yeah,
And
it's funny because that happened again. It's that's why I said that question was so interesting because just recently, and I'll tell you about it later on. But just recently, we were in a situation, a call recently, and it was just reinforced to me um, how unique each person is, and that uniqueness is what is needed. And the truth is, the people who need what I have, the people who need what Christina have, they will be attracted to us. But
yes,
if
ma'am.
I am, here I am with using visuals again, but if
Yeah,
I'm hiding behind my gift instead of standing boldly with my gift, then I'm going to be pushing people away who need what I have. The
right.
people who don't want to talk about Jesus, they ain't gonna come over here.
They're
And that's
not.
okay. That's
And
all
that's okay.
right.
They're not your
That's
people.
okay. There's somebody assigned for them.
That's exactly right. And what I find is that people who are nervous about, well, should I say these things or should I not? It's like, well, just say them, because the people
Yes.
that are meant for it are going to receive it, and the people that are not, they're not. And so you don't need to
Yes.
worry about that. Just do what you're supposed to do and feel
Mhm.
comfortable in doing it, and it all will come. It will all work out.
It always does.
It always does. We have just a little bit more time, and I always end with a final thought. And you know that I'm the mindset coach here.
Yes.
And so, what is the one thing that you would like to leave with our listeners and
Mhm.
viewers as it relates to mindset? And so, here it comes. When it
Okay.
comes to mindset, what is the one thing that you can share with the listeners as it relates to a therapist or
Mhm.
counselor, however you want to refer to it, and coaching, their views on it?
Okay. So I think the mindset principle I would leave is this, and I said it earlier. We were never created for isolation island. We were created to be in community. Now, here you go. Let me give you a little scripture since we're talking about ministry. There is a scripture that says, iron sharpens iron, right? But
Mhm.
when you read it in a certain translation, it actually says, iron sharpens iron. Watch this, Christina, through intense discussion.
Come on now.
And that statement alone is a mindset shift
Hmm.
because if you just thinking your own thoughts and you're not creating a space to have somebody help you sort through them, then you are literally living a very linear life without the ability to explore a different perspective.
There you go.
And so what coaching does, what counseling does, is just create the space in a safe environment for you to explore what you feel or what you're thinking so that you can get to the place you were meant to be. So the mindset shift is that you were not created. Just repeat it. I want them to repeat it after me. You were not created for isolation island. You were not created to do life by yourself. You don't need 20 people. It is quality over quantity. But you want to create a team that can help you live the life you were meant to live.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. It's perfect. It sums it up perfectly
Yes.
and actually wraps it up in a bow.
Yes.
And I think it's just most perfect. How can our viewers get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
The easiest way is my website, robinmayonline.com. May is like the month. So robinmayonline.com. I spend most of my time on Instagram, Robin May Online.
Okay, everyone, I want you to go and follow her on Instagram right now. I want you to share it with all of your friends
Yes.
and make sure that they are following her. And I also want you to go and visit Robin's website and just reach out to her. Do a free consultation call with her and find out
Yes.
more about what she has to offer. And also share that with your friends and family. This has been such an enriching conversation. I so appreciate you joining me
Thank you
and
for having
sharing.
me. Thank
You,
you.
you are so welcome. I'm going to be right back with you in just a moment.
Okay.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining me again. I hope this has been very informative for you. If you ever wonder what the difference was between being a coach or a therapist, Robin laid it out for us tonight. And so now we know the difference. And we all know that next week is coming up on Christmas, and you're probably wondering if there's going to be a conversation with Coach. Well, I started the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and so there absolutely will be a conversation with Coach. So stay tuned for that. And I have an amazing lineup coming for the first quarter of next year. You don't want to miss one single episode. And again, I appreciate you all being so supportive for me for this first whole month of Conversation with Coach. And I will have the video ready for this so you can watch it on replay and share it. And thank you again, and you all enjoy your evening.